Hi, Liz. How are you? There you are.
Good, good. It's lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you. How's it going?
Good. I think you were maybe the very last person I got to interview in person before the shutdown, because
Oh,
I was on the red carpet for the Stargirl premiere, and
oh yes, that was a wonderful premiere.
yes, and it was so kind of you to come back up and talk to the stragglers who didn't get a chance to talk to you before the actual event.
Yes, yes, indeed. No, it's my pleasure. It's good to see you again.
It's always a pleasure just hearing how you approach the creative process. And in terms of that, especially in terms of in terms of the roles you've taken. And I want to start off kind of with a big question, but probably not a hard one. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul have changed your life?
Yeah, certainly two really incredible shows, and the fact that they're linked together with such a wonderful group of creators and writers in the writers' room, and great minds who have great um, ideas for story. It's been a pleasure to be a part of that world. It takes me by surprise that it's been over 10 years now since the beginning of Breaking Bad. I came in the end of season 2, beginning of season 3. But they've changed my life quite a bit because in working on that particular show and collaborating with Vince and creating this character of Gustavo Fring, from one stage direction that he wrote, which was so left an indelible imprint on me, was Hiding in Plain Sight. So the idea behind my conversations with him was to create a villain, for lack of a better word, bad guy, interesting businessman who could sort of give you a peek into this world that you've never seen before. Both of these shows have impacted my life in a great way, because I developed a way of working on this character that was different than any other way of working that I had developed previously to other characters. And I always have building block steps I like to take. But with this particular character, I thought to take away would lend him to being more powerful than to add on. So to create a quiet, very contained, very meticulous human being who actually underneath it all, I carry the thought that he really does care about people and really does care about the organization that he's developing to be this new age cartel. So the impact on my life has been great, because people now know me all over the world for yet another project. I've had some great movies that people know me for, but this particular show has blown up across the globe and continues to make an impression on viewers that really excites me.
I hope that viewers are coming back, are discovering you through, this universe, and then looking back and seeing that you have decades of amazing work and a wide variety of characters.
Well, I feel blessed to of course, have Gustavo Fring be leading the charge for people to see my work. Last year was an incredible year for me. I feel like it's an embarrassment of riches. I was able to do another show called The Boys, playing a character named Stan Edgar, who's the head of Vought Company, a very interesting take on the world of superheroes and how our government co-opted their work and protection methods to protect people. So that's a great, great show. I've had a great time on that. Also was able to do another show in New York, which is I'm very, very proud of, called The Godfather of Harlem, which is I play a historic character out of Powell Jr., who was a congressman and also a preacher and also a wonderful lawyer during the civil rights movement. He was probably one of the first civil rights leaders in America, and a very flashy, wonderful person who was really dedicated to equality, but also to living in his own skin. So it's another show I was able to do this year. Also, Dear White People, I was able to be a part of that again. So I've had really quite a run this year to play diverse characters, and have been very proud to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, those were the only shows you did that came out last year. Nothing else big.
Yes. And I squeezed in, of course, Stargirl, which was a favorite of mine because of the material. Jerry Spinelli wrote a really wonderful book, and that, of course, is a movie, but it's also on Disney Plus. And last but not least, maybe not even the last, but another big show that hit this year that I've been a part of was I joined the Star Wars universe. And that has been really pretty incredible to be able to be Moff Gideon in this new Mandalorian series that is the true space Western with all the mythology that Joe Campbell wrote a book called The Power of Myth. And of course, the folks who were doing the original Star Wars were really, George Lucas was really pulling from that mythology and how we identify with heroes. Mm-hmm. And I think it was such a beautiful time for this show to come out because we are getting a clear dose of the example that we need heroes in our world today to guide us and to encourage us that we can get through these trying times that we're in right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind me asking, how are you holding up? Are you self-isolating in any particular location?
I think I got out of Canada. I was doing a job there, and I got out of there the day they were closing the border, and I came to Albuquerque. So I've been holed up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and doing just fine. We have a big problem on the Indian reservation with COVID, but here in Albuquerque proper, there are less cases, and there's a lot of space here. So it's been nice not to have to hunker down in a big city and feel really, really isolated. I mean, I feel isolated enough being home alone as the rest of us do. But I've been doing just fine with it, thinking about new ideas for stories and scripts and doing a lot of work through the Zoom.
I know you do a lot of voice work. Is that something that's still continuing for you right now?
Yes, it is. Yes, I've been able to do a couple of things from home. Was able to do a piece called The Broken and the Bad, which was really revolved around real life breaking badders in our world and how a new business came up that was one of the segments is about cleaning up a meth location. So a very intriguing interview show, and I hosted it. And so originally we were supposed to do it from the studio in New York, do 1 10-hour day and get it all done. And then it was going away, and they said, well, we can't quite travel the group. So I said, well, I can do a voiceover. But that was prior to seeing the show and what they had already shot. And so I agreed to just sit in my study over there and do it as a voiceover. But when I saw the material, I went, no, that's not going to cut it. The show is so very good and so interesting. I think people will really be fascinated by it, that I decided I would go out and I would just guerrilla filmmake all of my introductions. So I was able to do that with my youngest daughter, Ruby, who's 16 and a filmmaker. And so we went out with just she and my other daughter, Sear, and we ran around town and we shot a bunch of material. So when I think about it, I actually haven't really stopped working. I did that, and I've done a podcast, and I have to do another podcast next week. So it's been nice to find a way to work from home. It's been lovely.
So the series you're talking, so it's a documentary series? Is it for AMC or?
It is. Yeah, it's for AMC, and it's under the auspices of AMC Digital. It'll be a digital show called The Broken and the Bad, and it will be. It's really tight. I mean, I have to say, when you think about our world and where we're at and what goes on in our world of Better Call Saul, you can. And when you're in New Mexico and certain parts of New Mexico, in Albuquerque and other cities too, you see the big ads for lawyers who can get you out of anything. You know, they're the fixers of the day, so to speak, which is Saul is that, Bob Odenkirk is that in our show. And you start to see some of these stories. One is about a fixer. One's about a family business that came up from, learning how to be the Colin Care unit, how to come in and clean all the walls and reconstruct a home that may have been occupied by a meth lab. So these kind of things really happen in life. And so this show really plays on that and is illuminating in a way, because you realize how many people have a business surrounding something that's illicit, an illicit drug, either cleaning it up, either selling it. It's just very interesting world that we live in. So I'm proud of the show, and I look forward to you guys seeing it sooner or later.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I mean, because sounds like a perfect fit for the Breaking Bad universe, because that show was always so beautifully about consequences. Like,
Absolutely.
And I feel like
taking responsibility for the consequences of your actions. And what I love about Jimmy's McGill's character, who eventually, he was Jimmy McGill, and now Saul, is that he finds that that's where he's most comfortable. So he finds his place in life, no matter what we as an audience think of it or anyone thinks about what he's doing. He's good at it, and he loves it. So then why not do it?
we talked a little bit about The Mandalorian before, and I'm curious mostly just because I'm thinking about you out there in the wilds of Albuquerque shooting like in the real world. And there's been a lot of talk recently about, they've been doing documentary specials and so forth about how The Mandalorian was filmed and how it was a very non-real environment. And I'm curious for you as an actor, what was that experience like?
Well, so it's been my year, so to speak. It started with Mandalorian and this video game I did, which is going to be huge and I can't really mention, with this new style acting, which in a way, this pandemic has also created another new style of acting for you through Zoom, through our own mechanics of being able to figure out how we communicate. So Mandalorian was very similar to that because you're working in a big volume. So it's a big, huge room with thousands upon thousands of cameras that are about 3 or 4 inches in length and width. And they're little boxes that create not only, in the old days, we had green screen, which created our environment behind us. And now this world creates all of our solar system, our sky, our earth, but it's really being projected through a computer. So I find that your imagination has to fill in the rest. And so it's a different style of acting. You're looking around the room, you may have some props to stand on via the vehicle that you arrived in, whether it be my TIE fighter or something else, but there's nothing else there except what's projected. And so you create your look to a certain part of the environment, which guides the audience to look over that mountain or look up at that sky. And so all that has to be real. And so for me, I create a theatrical black box that there are other people in. That I can see other people there, the threat is coming from there, and you figure all that out and you mark it and label it and you make it real in the moment, but nothing's really there. So for me, that's an interesting way to recreate the scene in your head. So before, in this particular situation, I always sit down, read the scene, read the elements that are a part of the scene that I need to reflect upon, and then put the whole world there within my imagination and own it. And did I mention I have to do all that and wear a cape and carry a lightsaber, and make all that look like real and good? It's fascinating because you can control your environment to a certain extent because you're controlling your behavior. And so for me, I always have to focus, like working with Favreau and Filoni and these incredible technicians that have developed this. This is the first time a Star Wars piece has been done outside of London. Very first time, because Jon Favreau convinced them that he could do the technology and it would be up to snuff and it would be commensurate with the other Star Wars movies. And they gave him a shot at that. But they're over there trying to figure out all that, right? Like, so when I'm sitting here, I'm looking at you, this whole room could just move sideways. And they're figuring out which way they want it to move, what they want projected, how they want the sky to move. And I have to stay in the moment of figuring out what's my reality so they can really feel that. So I feel like my preparation for what I do on Star Wars is equal to or greater than what I would do anywhere else, because I'm having to feel the physical elements and impart them back to you without any help from anyone else except their technology, which works. Yeah.
Is it easier to work with than like your traditional, like just flat green screen?
I like it more because it completes the environment for me. Like, you walk into this volume and you could be in the desert. They could take you into outer space. Like, they literally put it up there. And I was so very impressed. Before I left Star Wars, the last episode, I was leaving. It was going to be Christmas. They were just finishing up. And they said, oh, wait, we want to give you a good send-off. And I'm standing in the big spaceship, and there are windows everywhere. And they said, so look to the right. And all of a sudden, Santa and his reindeers whoosh go across all of hyperspace with my name. Merry Christmas, Giancarlo. And I was just like, oh my gosh, they could do this? This is unbelievable. So I find that to be really pretty incredible, equal to the challenge of working in motion capture. Mm-hmm. So I started a film. I worked on a piece called Maze Runner with Wes Ball, who was doing a film called Mouse Guard, which he was preparing, and asked me to come in and start to work on it so we could convince the studio to go through with the film. It never did happen. It fell apart at the last minute, but that is a whole different situation. Now, I've done 2 of these motion capture pieces. That's intricate because you're wearing a helmet. So you have material on you. I was wearing in Mouse Guard a green bodysuit, could be black, all marked at your wrist and your knuckles and your elbow and your shoulder. And then you're wearing like a old-time football helmet with cameras and lights on it that are right in front of your face, capturing your every motion of your face so they can put that onto the character that they're creating in the computer. So that's another challenging way to act, because you're very aware that you're moving this head helmet with cameras and lights on it. And if you bump into your scene partner by getting too close, they have to come and readjust. It's a whole process of readjusting it all. But for me as an actor, you have to allow that to record everything, because it's going to look really just like a real movie. That's the technology today. They take all of what my emotions in my face, my body language, and they transfer that into a character on screen. But for me as an actor, I've got to get around all of the stuff. The camera in my face, the light shining in my eyes. I got to look in a certain way. All of these things are skills. So I learned a new skill by working on motion capture, and also with Mandalorian, that is going to be used more and more today than ever with what's happening in the world. So the actors that can walk onto a set and have done motion capture, they know the drill of where to put your arms. There's all these things of where you can go. They're the ones that are going to be getting the work. So I feel like I've been blessed to learn how to work in a different environment, but how to make it real. So for me in the old days, I'm a theater person, man. I come from the stage. You get on stage, you talk to somebody, you do your lines, and you stay present in the moment. This other world is completely derivative of a comic book or the vision of the director or the drawings that they've made or how they want it's very specific. And so for me to be on every time is very important, because I want them to have the ability to record, to get the best take. And that takes a true collaboration between what I'm doing and what the camera's doing.
Yeah.
Because it's just an important part of the specificity of it.
I mean, is this the sort of thing you can teach in an acting class, like motion capture performance?
Well, actually it is, because it takes me back to my theater days. It was the thing that reminded me most of theater, because you have no furniture, right? I don't have anything. Nothing in the room. So the connections to something physical have to be made through the scene partner. So every time I got uneasy in a motion capture suit, I put all my attention on my scene partner to make it real, because nothing else is going to make it look real except your acting. And then they'll plop that into a reality that is real.
Yeah. I once had a yoga teacher teach a class on outdoors, and it was actually, there was construction happening next door, so it was pretty loud and noisy. And she was like, use the distractions as a way to kind of like focus yourself. And I feel like the kind of all the technology that you're describing that goes into these performances, it almost feels like there's it feels like kind of the same thing where you're so focused on finding your way through it that you end up somewhere really centered.
I love that you brought up that analogy, because it was my yoga practice that brought me to my performances, Gus. And it's always been a constant reminder every time I'm on the set what I can do to just relax myself so I can be more of an observer. As performers, we love to perform. There's an energy about performing for a live audience, and even in front of the camera, it exists as well. That it's almost like endorphin-esque.
Mm-hmm.
And so that energy is the kind of energy that we actors love to play on, because then we can spontaneously do things that we wouldn't allow ourselves otherwise. But actors love to act. That's our forte, so to speak. And so what I learned in playing Gus, and with some of my other characters that I play as well, there's a sprinkling of being able to step back and relax and be calm and allow the organic nature of the character to come through you. And for me, that is really the joy, to resist wanting to always be the showman and understand that that showman is still there. I'm still showing and doing something real for a purpose. It just doesn't have to be P.T. Barnum all the time. It can also be a little more subtle. And so my yoga practice brought me to that. And so your analogy is perfect, because as well as I hadn't mentioned this, but in my normal life as an actor, there's always people coming up and going like this, putting lipstick. They don't even ask you. They just come and brush you off, and, and they do all these things to you. And so I that is also a distraction. So I, as opposed to disallowing them their last look call, mm-hmm. I let them do it. But I always tell my makeup artist or my hair person, I'm in a different place. So if I don't talk to you, it's because I know we're going to go in a second. Don't take it personally. So, and people often come up to you and start blinding you. How are you doing? And what are you having for lunch? And all these things. I don't want to think about any of that. I want to think about what I'm about to do. So there's the other focus that has to come in through deep breathing, through focusing your mind, closing your eyes, whatever that is for an actor. To me, that's a very important moment in time, because that's the time that you get before the camera rolls.
Yeah, whenever I've seen behind the scenes footage or seen people, or been on a set visit and seeing the process of filming, it's those 3 or 4 seconds right before action are always so fascinating, because every actor is different.
Everyone is different. Some just want to roll right into it and don't want to take that moment of breath, because in their brain they're ready to go. Others even wait moments after action's called before mm-hmm. they begin, because that's the only time that we can control, is the time and the spaces in between the lines. You can control that rhythm of timing. And if they don't like that rhythm of timing that you're taking, they can get in there with the scissors. But at least you're honoring yourself, because what we do is an art form. And for me, I feel like I always want to be in a place that honors my ability to allow my work to just flow out of me without force. And with good writing and good directing and good producing, nothing should be forced. It should be absolutely and completely natural. And so I've been very blessed this year to have experiences where, even playing different characters, really having great set protocol is just so very important. Because a lot of things are going on in the set, including a lot of talking, including a lot of phone is always around. And those things are distractions, because I'm there to do a specific part of my work, and so are others. Their specific pieces are different than mine. But mine requires all of me and all of the attention when that camera's rolling. Absolutely.
I think one aspect of that's always really interesting to me is the question of accents. Like, because you have a mastery for that. And, is there, when you're really committing to a specific accent, do you have to stay in it between takes?
I don't, but I'd like to. Because, in fact, Gustavo is Chilean, very different than your street Puerto Rican accent in New York, a very sort of upper class, educated accent. So I pay a lot of attention to the way that I say things, and the rhythm with which I say things. Some of our show is in Spanish, which is also Chilean Spanish is different than other Spanish in terms of the accent and how you're speaking it. So I've been blessed to have a very good ear, and I find that blessing has taken me far with my work with accents. I play characters who speak differently. In each character I play, I try to have that voice be different. Adam Clayton Powell Jr. is a great example, because he, when you really, if you never knew who he was and you look at a video clip, you might think he's a Southern Dixiecrat because he's very light-skinned black, almost looks Southern, and he spoke a little high, his voice was a little high. He's a 6'2" man with a voice way up here. He spoke like that, like a Southern guy, but he was from New York. And, but I went, oh, wow, this is going to be really tricky because people might think he's Southern. He's not. And it was one of the notes in my head when I started working on the show. But for me as an actor, I feel like you got to go all the way. Mm-hmm. So make it really, really, when you're talking, make it go all the way and then pull back. And I remember Chris Brancato coming to me, producer, showrunner, wonderful writer, and saying, I said, I know exactly what you're going to say. What am I going to say? Just be careful. It's not too Southern. I said, but he spoke. I know he spoke that way, but it's a fine line. And I said, Chris, I got it. I'm going all the way to pull back. And I found the rhythm where it would really lay, and people could recognize it and could relate.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But a wonderful thing to work on and play because that takes you deeper and further into the characterization, especially if you know history and background. And with Adam Clayton Powell, I've been through stacks of his, the bills he passed in Congress, videos of him speaking in the pulpit. He was a man of great flair and used it. And so to be able to do that with the accent is quite a lot of fun.
Excellent. I want to make sure I ask you about something that you're not in, but I remember hearing that you were originally supposed to be in the cast of The Five Bloods, which I watched this weekend. It was wonderful. And I was curious, can you reveal which role was supposed to be the one you were playing?
I would have played Eddie. He's the gentleman that I believe he steps on a mine and gets blown up. Haven't seen the film yet, but I would have played that particular character. And I was looking forward to that film. Not only because I just love and adore Spike Lee and the messages that he creates in his films that are so powerful and strong, but also because the cast he was talking to at that time, it was me and Samuel L. Jackson and Denzel Washington and Denzel's son. It didn't work out for any of us because the film got pushed, and Spike was wanting everyone to be there the whole time. Overseas when he shot it, and I was still shooting Better Call Saul and was juggling that with Godfather of Harlem, so it didn't work out. We were even announced to do it, and it was just so hard for me not to be able to do that film. I'm looking forward to seeing it this week, and I know I enjoyed the script. It was interesting. Spike's scripts contained so much, but it felt so much like a cross between the Sierra Madre, the treasure of Sierra Madre, and also the whole idea of never leaving a man behind, that they all go back for someone that was left behind who they loved and respected. But I hope to work with Spike again soon. I love what he does.
I feel like he's always just so engaging.
He takes chances, which I think is just so courageous. Even if they're chances that you don't agree with, he takes those chances and those risks and creates something really different from it. And it's really been lovely to know him all these years and watch his filmmaking progress and grow and deepen and have a deeper and more profound statement in a more subtle way. He's just brilliant at what he does. And so I look forward to seeing this movie.
He's always so committed to making the film a film and also a movie. That makes sense.
Absolutely. He's committed to telling a story. And he draws, that commitment is drawn from his understanding of the time he grew up in. And so I'm really anxious to see The Five Bloods because to see how it translated from paper to film, because that's a time I grew up in as well. We're close in age. So his view is look, his brilliance is not lost on me at all. And it affects me deeply because last week I was watching a particular piece of news feed. Earlier in the day, I saw a piece earlier in the day, maybe it was 11 or 12, where the police were on the roof of the Minnesota Police Department. And they were putting up some very shabby barricades on the roof. And I scratched my head and went, And everything was peaceful. They're looking down at the crowd and all that. later on that night, that very same angle of that police station was the exact same angle, but the police station was now burning. All the police had left the station. This is in Minnesota after George Floyd. And I'm hearing the chant, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace. And I'm watching the fire, and I just went, I grabbed my heart. I went, oh. It took me right back to burning down Sal's and Do the Right Thing. And that's when I went, Spike Lee then was way ahead of his time. Mm-hmm. And it's reflected of our time now. And I got choked up and started to cry and turned my newsfeed off on my phone. Because that moment, I lived that in shooting. I lived that in my life. I mean, the Getty Square riots of 1964, 65 in Yonkers, New York, were race riots. I was there as a kid because the babysitter brought me out there. I've lived through so many of these moments, and to see that and go, okay, do the right thing. Okay. What year was that? Okay. And this footage I'm watching now, what year is it now? It's like 2020, and we were back in 1999, it's like, wow. And that's when I got a little sad, but a little happy, because an artist that I know and love, so committed to what he does, and the true mark and test of time in all of his films has been Do the Right Thing. This is the movie that still holds up today and is being looked at more. Chris Brancato's mom teaches a film class, and she was showing Do the Right Thing last week. It was just shown in the Netherlands and Holland at a major theater. Like, people are revisiting this movie. So, it tells you that's a mark of a genius filmmaker. And I wish Spike continued to success in that realm, because it's a bigger picture of the work that he does in his life to make a film that affects us on a level that carries through time. My sadness came around Nothing's Changed. That, this time something has to change. And, and so I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it will, that people, now it's become a world movement. And when that happens, then change starts to really, people are now relating, especially New Zealand. Like, I know we're in a world of black and white, but when you go to like New Zealand and they're honoring George Floyd, but also honoring their Aboriginal people who have been discriminated against, it's a beautiful thing. That means everyone's relating to, rejecting anger and force and fear and racism. The whole world is, and they're taking it on as their plight, because little do we know that most people, whether you're white, even if you're white, have probably experienced some of the same things as well. So gender inequality, I'm hoping it's going to bring us back to that, because women have suffered more than anybody, over the longest periods of time as well, because no one looks at their plight. It's like they're not black, they have white privilege. Such a horrible, horrible label. Because I don't know your life. I don't know where you grew up. Like when I work with Boaz Yakin, another wonderful filmmaker, incredible artist, Jewish boy, grew up on a kibbutz, raised in Brooklyn, did a black movie, made a movie about black people, and people try to attack him on it. I went, well, you don't know his life. Let me just tell you about his life, so he doesn't have to tell you himself and doesn't look arrogant or displaced. He, this was his life. He grew up here with us. And he's got a hell of a basketball game if you want to clock that and check that off as being black. But his voice is that of humanity. And isn't that what we're trying to get back to? Isn't that what the whole world wants us to acknowledge? Being human. Mm-hmm. And humanity says, okay, look, you and I are going to get together peacefully and go and march. We have a right to do that. And it's inhuman to disallow that. It's inhuman to co-opt that happened. And then everything rose to another beautiful spiritual level in our world. Because then the world got involved and said, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. This happened here. This happened in our culture. And then we become human again. And I think that's what we're really looking for. And we're demanding of our legislators, our government, our leaders, to have that humanity that guides us. My biggest sadness, besides what's going on in the world, is that we have no real leadership.
Mhm.
And we need that. And I, as an actor, need that. I need a fearless director. I'm a director myself, fearless producer, to guide us to a place where we have entertainment that fosters our compassion and our humanity. And I think it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think as awful as it is that the world has reached this crisis point, I think that it is the thing that comes out of a crisis point is some sort of hopeful resolution.
Absolutely. Look, my mother used to say you get more with sugar than you do with salt. And she was right. It's a beautiful little saying. So, when I thought, what do I tell my kids? I have mixed children, and 4 daughters, all girls, who are very committed to protesting and letting their voice be heard. But how do I tell my children that every day in my life there is this moments of fear every time I leave my house? Because if they go, Papa, don't you know who you are? Well, the fact is, I do know who I am. And I choose not to walk around, and my head is not emblazoned Giancarlo Esposito from this, the actor. I live my life as a human being. So when I leave my home and get behind the wheel, I'm very conscious. I got to put the seatbelt on. I to do my blinkers work. I don't want to get stopped while I'm in the car. I'm very aware. And I realize that feeling I have is fear. That's fear. Am I going to come back home?
Yeah.
Am I going to see my kids again? Like on a very mild level, it's always there. And when I thought about what's happening in the world today and how it affects me, I thought, oh my God, that's awful. I can't tell them that I'm afraid all the time. And that fear translates to being hypervigilant, which translates to being having PTSD, which translates to you're 5 moves down the chessboard before the cop gets out of his car to say, oh, you made an illegal right-hand turn. Oh, did I? I'm sorry. I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, well, police are supposed to help you. Maybe you didn't see that you didn't stop at the stop sign, make you a better driver. Instead, they come up to hassle you and go, did you see that? Blah, 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 and you're out of your car and you're dead. Right? As opposed to helping you understand, oh, yeah, well, in a 4-way stop, my kids don't know this, they all drive. 4-way stop, who goes first? Who goes out of the stop sign first?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. The person on the left.
Right. And it goes around the horn.
Yeah.
Right. So, you help people so that they become better human beings.
Yes.
Duh.
Well, one thing that makes, I feel like it's making the world a better place is, kind of pushing at the idea of who can play what kind of roles. And this is an example I love because it's something that totally makes a lot of sense to me and is also totally not something expected, is you getting cast as Lex Luthor in the Harley Quinn animated series. And, that is a canonically white character, and yet, it's your lovely voice coming out of him.
And I remember Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor, and which excited me so much. I'm a big fan of his, and of course from back in his big film days from the French Connection on. But yes, really a wonderful opportunity to be able to do that. And what I've always desired is to be unconventional in the roles that I play and how I play them. Because I feel and it's not just to be different, it's to be original. Bring something original to the table. And Lex Luthor, to be able to develop that particular character just vocally in the Harley Quinn series has been so much fun. Because he's different. He's different than what we have expected, and brilliantly cast with me as the voice, because, many people who watch may not know who I am in the beginning, and they may not have any idea what my skin color is. And so it's really wonderful to be able to, has always been my dream to play characters who don't have to be defined by that. Right. And I was really pleased that they felt like I was the guy to do that voice work.
Having talked to actors who work in genre TV, genre entertainment in general, that that's one of the freeing aspects that, if you're Black in space, that doesn't, that's very different from being Black in America.
Absolutely. Very different and really groundbreaking in many ways, because it speaks to the idea that, I've always thought that meritocracy is important. And if I'm best for the role, I should get that role. And if it fits with the vision of the creators. And there's the loophole, because the vision of the writer and director and creators controls the amount of Black or white or Asian in a project. But I particularly like projects that are about the human journey that also can remind me of my own journey, no matter what color they are. Like, I have that challenge, or I can look at something and go, oh, I have that challenge too. We have that challenge in our family. When you think about families that are both Black and white, mm-hmm. like, who's speaking to those people in our media? Who's speaking to my family, with a white mother and 4 mixed daughters who, have uttered the words white privilege to people in public, and then come home and look at their mom and go, oh, you're a part of that too, right? So then it starts to eat away at the fabric of the family, and ask questions about, what is your white privilege about? How do you feel your white privilege? How do you look at, as a white mother, your Black daughter? Like, how do you talk to them? Do they accuse you of not knowing? And that's why, I say that my feelings, I have to share all of which with my children, who ask, why aren't you posting right now? Because I feel like we're in a deplorable state, and I've got to regain my composure. And yes, I'm angry. Yes, I've protested over and over again. Yes, I see that things haven't changed. And yes, I hear what you're asking me. You need me to say something because people look up to me. I need to be silent right now. I'm going to join Dave Chappelle and just don't take my silence as not having feelings. And so I started to do some posts that were uplifting, because that's who I am and where I come from, to get people to think about humanity as a whole. Yes, march, get this legislation done that changes things substantially on paper and as laws. But then you've got to step back then and move on and let go of your personal anger and decide if that's going to be something that you're going to carry and use all of your life in your art and your work and everything, or if you're going to represent humanity. And so I made a decision a long time ago. From the first time I went to an audition, voiceover audition, walked in the room, and there were all 10 white guys sitting there. And I sat down and I signed in, and someone came out and said, Giancarlo Esposito. Or they said, Giancarlo Esposito. And I said, yes. And they went, oh, can I talk to you for a minute?
Oh, no.
Oh, we're so very sorry. We didn't know. What didn't you know? And I just strung them out. Well, we didn't know that you didn't know that that I'm Black. Oh, I see. And from that very first moment, I realized I wanted to transcend that and allow people to know that human beings shouldn't be judged by their color of their skin, but by the content of their character and by their morality and by their education, which is why I feel like the one thing I would say to people today is vote. With all of the protesting and everything else, register to vote, because that will affect true change, and that is the way to have your voice heard, as well as peaceful protests, but vote, because it's coming up soon and you can make a difference.
Absolutely. I think I'm nearing the end of my time with you, unfortunately. I could keep going for hours, honestly. But I do want to ask you, aside from a better world project-wise, creatively, what are you looking forward to? What do you hope to do soon?
Well, I'm really looking forward to this season 6 of Better Call Saul, because it's the final season. Mm-hmm. And I have such great feelings about this show and also Breaking Bad. So I'm looking forward to, excited to see what the writers have up their sleeves for this last and final 6th season. I'm really excited about The Boys, because the show is taking a turn and showing us who we really are in regard to our government and our feelings that we want to have about ourselves in terms of power. Like, what is power? It investigates all of those things. How do we keep the people safe, but how do we also control them? And so that's a very contemporary theme that's going on now in our world. And I'm excited about Mandalorian because that is the hero's journey. We're all looking to find some kind of power and connection through this space Western with a hero who can be a gentleman,
Mm-hmm.
you know, who can not draw first, but maybe ask you a few questions before he shoots you, or give you the option to turn and walk away. These are the old days of gentleman warriors who had some morality. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm in development for a show currently at FX that I'm hoping will go, because I feel like it's the perfect piece of story that relates to our world today. It has characters from all over the world and who share the commonality of wanting to be respected and wanting to be able to make a living and take care of their families. And so it deals with immigrant culture as well as an American culture who have been anti-immigrant in some ways, depending on who our leadership is. So I'm looking forward to getting that project off the ground as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much for your time today. It's been, again, an absolute pleasure. And hopefully someday we'll get to do this again, maybe even in the world where we can talk in person.
I hope so. What a blessing you are to talk to. Thank you so much.